Hey, Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer fans. Welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I am your host, Nick, and Neymar Watch continues here in Chicago. But things aren't as optimistic as they were even just a couple of days ago. There have been some developments as to where Neymar could possibly end up. That's not Chicago. That actually might have some legs to it. So we're going to talk about all of that. But fortunately, the Chicago Fire aren't putting all their eggs in one basket, or their potatoes, maybe, if you're Ezra Hendrickson. We'll react again to the Neymar news and what's turning into a bit of an international soccer saga. And as I mentioned, the Fire are looking elsewhere for reinforcements. They have recently announced the signing of Jonathan Bamba from Celta Vigo as their next designated player. We're going to take a few minutes to get to know the winger and look to see how he's going to fit in with the Chicago Fire in the 2025 season. Also, don't forget to look out for the link on social media to connect with other Feed the Fire listeners and fans on a fan-created Discord channel. Make sure you join that as well. Thanks to Ryan for putting that together for us. All right, let's dive into all the developments with Neymar coming to the Chicago Fire. We talked a lot about the pros and cons in last episode, but kind of recap, people are either really in favor of it or really against it. There's a handful of people who say, man, if we don't get Neymar, that's fine. We're making a lot of other signings. But those are the rational few people that are on social media and on the internet. Let's go to the extremes. You either love it or you hate the fact that the Chicago Fire were trying to sign Neymar. And I recently received an email from friend of the show, Ryan, who really kind of perfectly articulated the reasons why the Fire should bring in Neymar. Ryan says, I would 100% support this, kind of similar to the Cristiano Ronaldo move I said the Fire should try to make. I think Greg is building a solid roster, and I would see this as a more expensive version of Gareth Bale LAFC made a couple years ago. Not my money to spend, so easier said than done. Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. You're right. It's not our money, but it sounds like Joe Mansueto also is okay spending his money. This is his passion project, his fun, his hobby, if you will. I guess that's a billionaire's hobby. I mean, we play intramural leagues. He runs his own sports club. I guess that's the difference in our lifestyle and socioeconomic and tax bracket there. But yeah, it's Joe's money and he's happy to do, and I'm happy for him to spend it. Ryan continues. Signing Neymar would put a big spotlight on the team, creating a better atmosphere around the club on the whole. Chicago versus the Florida Messis would be number one, the biggest game for MLS all this calendar year, depending on who makes the finals, even bigger than that. And two, the hottest ticket for Chicago sports since the Blackhawks Stanley Cup runs. I know people fear from DP mistakes before, but if this is something that they can make happen, do it. Last point, Ryan says. Outside the Fire, I think I told you I want MLS to grow, and moves like this help. And moves like this helps. The league isn't at a point like NASL when all the superstars that weren't sustainable. Keep raising the floor of play, sprinkle in the superstars to accelerate the raise of play even more. So great email from Ryan there. Perfectly articulates everything. Neymar would raise the level of the league, raise the level of the club. It would be the biggest ticket in town. It would put Chicago back on the map as a sports city, as a soccer city. All these great things. And the counterpoints, though, that we've been seeing and discussing ourselves is he's injury prone, he's aging, he's a bit of a diva. And I recently had a conversation with our old friend of the show here, John Donovan, who we're looking to get him back to doing some kind of game recaps and segment for the 2025 season. So if you like John's unique takes on things, and if you want to continue to interact with him, please make sure you're emailing me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com, and we'll see if we can't get him giving his 2 cents after every Fire game. But John and I were talking earlier today, and he echoed these negative points, but also would rather see the Chicago Fire and MLS clubs continue to develop the homegrown talent that's here in the United States. Now, using my words here, I think John would like to see MLS clubs find the American Neymar, not go out and spend 40, 50 million, giving them ownership rights, giving them crazy MLS percentages and things of that nature. I think John would rather see, and there's a lot of other people out there, and I would to a certain extent, want to see our Major League Soccer academy system, youth development system, American soccer system, wherever, however it's growing, start developing players at that level. Pulisic shouldn't be the outlier. He should be the first of many. And we're starting to see a little bit more with the advent of Next Pro, with integrations with MLS, some of the new roster rules allowing second team players to have more opportunities to train with and play with the first team, especially in cup competitions where there's typically a wider audience. You're starting to see those club partnerships come to fruition, partnerships with clubs overseas in training, in coaching exchanges, and methodology, as well as getting player exposure there. So I think that is a huge opportunity now, to John's point, where MLS clubs don't need to be spending the $20 million plus to get a Messi, a Neymar, or what it would take to get Lewandowski, since that was always kind of on the lips of a lot of fans, like, bring in Lewandowski. So we can find and develop some good talent. That would be, I think, John's preferred method. And if we're just looking to not sign a Neymar, but we're looking to sign a top 10 winger in the league, or a top 5 winger in the league, or a top 15 player in the league, then no, you don't need to go spend 20, 30, 40 million and go through all these rounds of negotiations and all the extra incentives that go in there. You can find that here in the United States as part of your academy system. And now that they've loosened the rules, clubs can go sign players from other academy systems. And also you can do it with the U22 initiative. We've seen a lot of success with MLS clubs going to South America or going to some of the lower divisions in Europe and bringing in these under 22 players who are just excellent players. And then they're either signing them to big deals, helping them win championships and trophies, or then flipping them, transferring them, and bringing in a boatload of cash to reinvest in certain infrastructure and other players. So I do agree with John that we do need to focus on these U22 initiatives, on these homegrowns, on these American development players, but we're not at the point yet where we are regularly producing, I'll say, Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie level talent. Like, there's not one of those guys in every MLS Next Pro team or even on every MLS roster at this point yet, from an American perspective. So we do need to go out and sign those international talents to raise the level of play to compete with clubs on the world stage. But I don't think we're as far off as a lot of other people think. Again, I'd love to see Neymar here. I think the spectacle would be great to talk about. I think it'd be fun to go to these games and see some of the best players in the world playing their best against him, as well as seeing him play. I haven't gotten to see Messi in Chicago yet. Yep, we all know the gripes about that. Chicago Fire season ticket holders. And honestly, I'd probably end up selling my Miami at Chicago tickets just to try and recoup some of the season ticket costs, which still aren't that bad. I'm not complaining about the prices, because I have got a lot of stuff going on that weekend, unfortunately, and I probably won't be able to make the Miami at Chicago game, sadly. But still, I think it's going to tend to be more of the positive effects than the negative, even despite Neymar's injury and personal reputation. All right, moving on to kind of continue where we're going with all this Neymar talk. So what has happened since our last episode that has kind of changed everyone's perspective on whether Neymar is going to come to Chicago? So here's kind of where I understand things are as of today, Tuesday the 21st. So Al Hilal is his current club. They have not registered Neymar to a roster spot or with the league to play this upcoming spring season. He's still under contract, though, to either to June or through June, and owed something like $60 to $70 million of that contract. $60 to $70 million. So they don't want him on their team, and they don't want to pay him to continue to not play. There was talk that they wanted him for the Asian Championships, but he probably won't be playing in that by his own choice, or continuing to say he's nursing and coming back from an injury. So Al Hilal's like, we got to get rid of this guy somehow, some way. Now, Neymar himself obviously is pursuing a move outside of Saudi Arabia. However, I think Al Hilal would rather work with the Chicago Fire and MLS because they've got more money than most of these other teams that are out there. Or maybe they want to work with another club with money, who knows? But it's and they do want to get out from this Neymar contract, this insanely large $100 million a year contract. But I don't feel so bad for them because they're the ones that did that to themselves. This is the Saudi government and the Saudi league saying we're going to throw insane amounts of money at stars to get them to come to our league to try and attract viewership and business and fans and all this other thing. And it's not working. And now they're stuck in these tens of hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts that they're trying to cut their losses on. So I don't feel so bad for them, but I get it from a business perspective that the club would rather work with MLS and Chicago than, say, I don't know, Neymar's boyhood club, Santos, because that's what it looks like where Neymar wants to go. He wants to leave Saudi Arabia, but he wants to go back to Santos. So Santos is trying to put together some sort of loan option. I don't believe they have the financial wherewithal to pay a transfer fee, to pay Neymar those 60 to 70 million wages. And something's got to give here, right? Neymar wants out of Saudi Arabia, but he still wants the money he's owed under his contract. Chicago wants to do business with Al Hilal and bring Neymar to MLS and to Chicago as a highly paid, similar to Messi kind of a deal, but Neymar might want a little more than that. So Neymar wants to have his cake and eat it too. He's not going to get his money and go back to Santos. The Chicago Fire aren't going to get a committed player possibly without a price. And Santos, though, isn't going to get him if they can't come up with the money or some good financial terms in a loan deal. So everyone has to give a little here, but no one seems to want to do that yet. And maybe that's just because we're still in early negotiations, that no one really wants to tip their hand or say, here's my best and final offer, and then just kind of put it to bed. But I will say, the Chicago Fire have a lot of irons in the oven, a lot of coals in the, what's the phrase? I always do this. A lot of irons in the oven, a lot of irons on the stove. I think that's the phrase. They're stoking the fire. That's what I'm saying. They've got a lot of other options. As I mentioned, they're not putting all their eggs in the Neymar basket here, and they've gone out and signed another designated player in the meantime. So I think that shows, or it should show, Neymar and Al Hilal, like, hey, look, we're not desperate for you. It would be amazing if you came here, but we got other plans. Like, you would be the 2-year guy to really just blow the lid off of things for us, but we're still going out and signing really, really good players and putting together a good team for 2025. Like, we're not desperate for you. We're not going to throw $70 million at you or whatever the case may be. I think that's the way Chicago's positioning themselves. So maybe Al Hilal ends up going with the loan to Santos to that way they can avoid any unpleasantness with Neymar, or possibly, who knows what's in his contract with them, if there's some sort of player approval or player preference, whatever it is. And that way they just say, fine, we're going to cut our losses. We'll take whatever money they pay us for a loan and we move on. Or there's still the summer transfer window. This has come up in recent conversation too, that Neymar could either just stick it out and not play in Al Hilal, get loaned to Santos for the 6 months till his contract's up in June. And then he's got a choice. Either he makes the free agent signing to stay with Santos, or he could then come back to MLS as a free agent. That is still all on the table. However, I think from Neymar's perspective, if he goes home, if he's back in Brazil and with Santos, all of a sudden becomes a free agent and says, peace out, I'm off to the United States, that might tarnish his reputation. Maybe he doesn't care about it, or maybe Santos is trying to put something into whatever loan deal that they do have a purchase option, or they get right of first refusal, or whatever it is, in order to keep him in Santos for the end of his career. But that is another option. He would be a free agent unless he signs some sort of extension. Or maybe that's the plan Santos is trying to do, loan with a purchase and extension and defer some wages, whatever it is. That could be the plan all along for Neymar. Let me go home, get my homecoming, live it up for a little bit, and then go back and get one more final paycheck in MLS. But here's my own crazy theory. Like, all of that is well and good and reasonable, and it could go in any of those directions, and it wouldn't shock me. Here's my own crazy theory that I'm putting out there, and absolutely call me out if you think this is absolutely crazy, but it's fun to think about. I think Neymar maybe wants to go play in Miami with Suarez and Messi and everyone else, and live in Miami and have that lifestyle and have a good time. However, the Chicago Fire have the exclusive rights to Neymar at this point. So he's got to do something in order for the Fire to either waive or give up on those rights, or to get out from the Chicago Fire having the right of first refusal, or the right of first negotiation, so to say, with him coming to MLS. So if he does some sort of loan, or and goes back to Santos, or if the Chicago Fire can't get the deal done, even if Neymar's the one kind of tanking it, then maybe that opens up the door for a club like Miami to come in and start negotiating with him. That's not Chicago. my crazy theory, Neymar's trying to tank the Chicago deal so he can go to Miami. Anyway, that is something that we will speculate and conject with, whatever, and as we continue covering this entire reaction to the story. But I will say, I like having the reactions. I like having the fun conversations. Someone actually reached out to me on Twitter to see what inside news I had. I'm not an insider. I'm not a reporter. And I will encourage you all to keep your eye on Men in Red 97 Media. They've got sources within the league. They have press credentials with the club and contribute to MLSsoccer.com as well as have run their own website. Those guys are probably your best bet on Chicago coverage. I would avoid ESPN Brazil, who screwed up a whole bunch of easily fact-checked facts in their coverage of this. They said that there were representatives from the Chicago Fire who were in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, and as a matter of fact, Berhalter was not there. He was obviously getting ready for the preseason, and it was Joe Mansueto and Greg Broughton who were actually in London to meet with reps of Al Hilal and Neymar. So, like, ESPN Brazil is getting basic facts wrong. I think they're just kind of in a rush to publish stuff. So stick with Men in Red 97 for the best Chicago reporting, and then come join me here and let's talk about it and react and go nuts and come up with crazy theories as to why Neymar would want to get out of any sort of negotiations with Chicago so he can go play in Miami or New York or LA or Miami or probably Miami. Anyway, it's also funny to think people are talking about how Neymar should just buy Santos and then he can run the club. I don't think that's what he wants out of his career in life. I don't know if he wants to get into the business of soccer. And also, from what I've seen, it sounds like Santos is not in the best financial situation right now, that they do have a lot of debt. I'm not calling them bankrupt or going under or anything like that. But if he were to buy out the club or buy a majority stake in the club, then he'd have to really infuse more cash in the future to make sure that they're on solid ground, especially if they try to make some deal for him. So that probably is not the best business sense for Neymar to do. So that's what's going on with Neymar. It's a lot of fun to think about. It's a lot of fun to talk about, speculate, have some crazy thoughts. Let me know what you think. Again, email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. And thanks for Ryan for the comments. Thanks to John for the conversation. It's always fun to talk about this sort of thing and what it means for the league. Not just we're getting a superstar in Chicago, maybe, but what does it mean for MLS? What does it mean for American soccer? But the Fire did announce a signing today. They have announced that they have acquired winger Jonathan Bamba from Celta Vigo or Celta Vigo. I always say it like my old history teacher, the Celts, the Celts, right? So just today it was published that the Chicago Fire have acquired winger Jonathan Bamba as a designated player via transfer from Spanish First Division side Celta de Vigo. And the reason he's coming over as a DP, not only because of his salary, but also because of his transfer fee. And the release, we'll get into that a little bit here. Bamba will occupy an international spot on the roster pending the receipt of his visa and international transfer certificate. His contract will run through the 2027 MLS season with a club option for 2028. So we've got 3, possibly 4 years of Jonathan Bamba running on the wing in Chicago. Now, here is what Greg Berhalter said. We're thrilled to welcome... Let me start over and not mispronounce the words Greg is saying here. We're thrilled to welcome Jonathan to the Chicago Fire. He has competed in 2 of Europe's top leagues and played an instrumental role in Lille's League One title run. His experience, work rate, and ability to break down defenses will be a huge asset as we look to build a strong team for the upcoming season. Jonathan is a talented player who fits our values and philosophy, and we're excited to welcome him to Chicago in the prime of his career. And that's the quote from Greg Berhalter. Now we hear from the newest Chicago Fire player, Jonathan Bamba, who says, I'm very happy to join Chicago Fire FC at such an important moment for the club. The direction the team is heading, both on and off the field, is very exciting, and I'm looking forward to contributing to its future success. I'm ready for this new challenge and can't wait to work with my new coaches and teammates to achieve great things together, end quote. And once again, Fire fans, we are hearing new signings, new staff, new office people talking about what a moment this is for the club, the direction they're going on and off the field, the vision, the drive, the plan, all these things that Berhalter and all of his hires and Mansueto and Baldwin and everyone's been working toward. You're starting to hear buy-in from these new acquisitions. Now, as someone who's bounced around to a few different legal jobs over the years, everything is roses during your first stint or when you sign that new contract or get that offer letter, right? So we'll see if this is just flowery talk because he's excited at this new opportunity and new challenge, as he puts it, or if he really is buying in. And I do think it's the latter. I don't think they'd be pursuing players that would be putting out kind of plastic fake quotes like that. Now, the press release continues that Bamba, age 28, joins the Fire after participating in 338 matches in various competitions across Europe, including France, Belgium, Spain, the French Cup, UEFA Champions League, Europa League, Copa del Rey. He's got 50 goals and 53 assists in all competitions during those 338 matches. So about every third game, he's getting on the score sheet. He's also won the 2024 Africa Cup of Nations, the 21-22 French Super Cup, and the 2020-21 League One Championship. He began his career playing with Saint Etienne in League One after playing for their academy and B-side. He then joined League Two side Paris FC, went to the Belgian League Saint Truiden, and then went to League One in France Angers SCO. And following Saint Etienne, he joined Lille, where he ended up playing the bulk of his career, 200 matches with 29 goals and 35 assists, winning the French Super Cup and the League One title. So that is kind of the peak of his career, and we'll get into some of the stats on those seasons in a little bit. He signed with Celta de Vigo in July of 2023. He's got 42 appearances, 6 goals, and 3 assists. Most recently, won the PK against La Liga giant Real Madrid on January 16th. I'm sure those highlights have been all over your news feeds, as they are mine. Now, Bamba was born in France, Alfortville, France, and has dual citizenship with France and the Ivory Coast. He represented France at youth levels, but has committed to the Ivory Coast's national team. So he has gotten that African continental experience there. And as far as his personal stats, 5'9", 159 pounds, birthday March 26th, 1996. So he's got his birthday coming up. We'll have to celebrate, hopefully, with the Fire win at that time. So what else can we glean from his stat sheet here? I haven't watched a lot of Bamba. We've seen the highlight videos. Of course, you're going to see the best moments of his. But looking at the website fbref.com, his best season in terms of goal production was 2018-2019 season with Lille. He had 13 goals and 3 assists. But he's also had productive seasons, 15 goal contributions in the 2020-21 season with Lille, and 13 goal contributions with the 2022-2023 season with Lille. Celta Vigo, he hasn't had as much productivity, and I think he's been playing a little bit of a different role for that club in Spain, much more of a creating type of winger. And if you look at his scouting report, compared to other attacking midfielders or wingers, according to fbref.com, he's not up there as far as goals, assists, expected goals. Like, that's not where his game is. He is in the higher percentages as far as attempted passes, passes completed. He's in the top half of progressive passes and progressive carries. Where he absolutely stands out and is in the 93rd percentile is in interceptions. So based on these statistics, based on the scouting report on FBref, comparing him to other attacking mids and wingers, those playing in his position, he seems to be the creator, more of a creator, as well as a kind of defensive winger where he's pressing a little bit more, pushing up the pitch. I'd love to see some heat maps of where he's been playing with Celta Vigo and on those couple of good seasons with Lille. And if you want to compare him to other players that have a similar scouting report, well, FBref does that for us as well. And a lot of Italian league players, a lot of Serie A players here. Mattia Zaccagni of Lazio, Nicola Vlasic of Torino, Andrea Colpani, Fiorentina, and Stephen El Shaarawy, excuse me for mispronouncing that, with Roma, and Himad Abdelli of Angers. So those are some of the players. If you're following the Italian league, that's the style of winger that we'll be getting, and it kind of matches with the Chicago Fire pursuing Jonathan Ikone as well from Fiorentina. So I think this is a great move for the Chicago Fire to bring in a creating winger. It was something that was a glaring omission from last year's roster. No one was there to serve Hugo Cuypers the ball. We saw just a lot of long ball that first half of the season with Shaqiri trying to lob balls over the top. We saw a lot of that also coming from some of the wing backs when Klopas was trying to use that, just trying to send, say, Gutman, Dean, Suke down the pitch and just lobbing balls in. Chris Mueller similarly was trying to get a lot of those crosses off, but I think Mueller too was trying to get involved more in the goal scoring opportunities and maybe wasn't focusing on a creation role. Maybe that's what the coaching staff told him. Maybe that's what he did on his own. But I think that Jonathan Bamba is going to be able to focus on setting up Hugo Cuypers and also can play maybe as that second striker, attacking mid, depending on where the ball's at on the pitch and how Berhalter wants to coach his principles of play, as they say, with the Chicago Fire. So that's what's going on with Jonathan Bamba, the latest acquisition for the Fire. And I'm sure there's going to be tons of Chicago Fire news as soon as I publish this episode. But we're going to transition just briefly to the national team level, to the U.S. men's national team. They had a 3-1 victory over Venezuela on Saturday, January 18th. I had a really fun email conversation with a friend of the show and a friend who I see at our season tickets and our seats every match, Israel, saying that, yep, Schulte overrated. When is Brady ever going to get his shot? I agree with you 100% on that one. Especially, he also called Drake Callender as, I think he said overrated, but absolutely would agree with you on that one, Israel. Love to see Chris Brady step up. I don't know, maybe the Fire said we'll release one, but not both. We want to see what we've got from a goalkeeping perspective here. Obviously, they know Brady, and we'll see. He's got to mesh with some of these new defenders. Not as much of a problem for Gutierrez, who I'm really glad gets his call up, gets his start, plays 73 minutes against Venezuela, and gets that cap with the USMNT. Now, I still think he's eligible for the one-time switch because he's only played in a friendly game, so it is still within the realm of possibilities that he could get make an appearance with the Mexico national team if they want to bring him in and immediately have him playing meaningful games for them, because it's still difficult to see Gutierrez competing with the likes of Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, Luca De La Torre, who is in MLS now, who signed with San Diego, by the way. So maybe they will have. That'll be a great matchup for USMNT implications, right? And people were speculating that too when Gutierrez in Chicago would play against Miami. Is there a Cremaschi Gutierrez matchup here that's going to elevate one over the other in national team eyes and standings? But I think Gutierrez had a very safe outing in his match against Venezuela. I didn't watch a lot of the game, but I don't recall him making any huge mistakes. If you like using the foot mob scoring system, he ended up getting a rating of 6.5 over those 73 minutes. The highest rating on the game, Jack McGlynn at 8.8, and Matko Miljevic with 8.3. So those are your top guys. Ben Cremaschi, the aforementioned, picked up a yellow card. He was rated 7.1, so a little bit higher than Gutierrez on foot mob standing here. But his stats for that game, 18 of 20 complete passes, so 90% completion rate. Excellent from a midfield perspective. He was starting out on the left wing on this one, so maybe that shows you Pochettino thinks of him as more of a winger with his skill set, being able to take players one-on-one rather than picking the ball up at midfield from the D-mids, turning and driving forward. Or maybe that's just where he fits in, and maybe that's where Berhalter wants to see him a little bit as well, and possibly back up some of these guys on the wing, or take a stronger role on the wing with Zinkernagel if Bamba's pushing into the central part of the field or pushing up field. So there's still some versatility. I still would love to see Gutierrez just take over as the central attacking midfielder, be the one that orchestrates the offense, but we'll see how Berhalter wants to play him. Guti ended up with 29 touches, 3 in the opposing box. He had 3 successful dribbles. He had 1 of 3 successful dribbles, so that's something that could be improved upon. Only 2 passes into the final third, though. So I don't know where he was receiving the ball and picking it up, or if he was just kind of working some 1-2 combinations on the wing, but not playing the ball into dangerous areas, though he is credited with 1 of 1 as far as accurate long balls. Only 2 defensive actions, 3 recoveries, got dribbled past once, won 2 of his 4 duels. won 2 of his 6 ground duels, and committed a foul. So, like I said, not a very impactful, a very safe game. And whether you are of the mindset that you need to absolutely let everything out, it's a friendly, you've got to show that you're willing to take and make mistakes at this level in order for a bigger reward, or if he was trying to play it safe and just not get himself taken out of the men's national team picture thus far, or if he was just trying not to get hurt before the Chicago Fire season, I think either of those narratives could kind of fit into his performance here. So we'll see what the team has in store for him and what Pochettino has in store for him in the USA's next friendly against Costa Rica tomorrow, Wednesday, the 22nd. I would imagine we see him coming off the bench and Pochettino wanting to rotate some starters and see how guys can play with extended minutes or in a starting role against Costa Rica. I'm not sure if Costa Rica would be considered a better opponent than Venezuela, especially with, this being kind of January friendlies. But I do expect Costa Rica to want to send a bit of a message. These are guys they could be facing in World Cup qualifying. Now, the U.S. has automatically qualified as one of the host nations, but Costa Rica still is going to have to qualify. These are guys that the Costa Ricans might be fighting for club roster spots in Mexico, the United States, potentially Canada at the CPL level, or even in the U.S. at the USL level. So there are incentives for Costa Rica to want to come out and play a really good game here. So we'll see what Wednesday brings us. Now we're just over a half hour here. So just to quickly kind of recap, and maybe I'll save this for a little bit longer show next time. MLSsoccer.com has a transfer tracker that tells you all the players that are in and all the players that are out from a club. So let me recap the Chicago Fire as it stands with this offseason, and then maybe next episode we'll take a look at all the other clubs in the Eastern Conference and see if the Chicago Fire are keeping pace with some of the better clubs or advancing and getting closer to the better clubs. So we know that the players who are out of the roster: Aragoni, Casas, Chijos, Herbers, Lassiter, Ritchie, Olmsberg, Becerra, Rodriguez, Wooten, Kutsias, Jimenez, and Salquist. Those have all left the club for various reasons. Who have the Fire now brought into the club? David Pareba, Jack Elliott, Omari Glasgow, Dylan Borso, Dean Bolts, super draft pick, Philip Zinkernagel, Sam Rogers, Leonardo Barroso, and now Jonathan Bamba. So they have brought in 5 listed midfielders, 3 listed defenders, and 1 listed forward, that being Dean Bolts. But we know in the modern game and in the Berhalter system, if you got the ball, you're attacking. So with that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in once again. Please reach out to me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com or at glasshouseSoccer on social media with your thoughts on Neymar, with your thoughts on the Bamba signing. Who else do we want to see? Is the Jonathan Ikone thing still something we want now that we have Bamba and Zinkernagel and we've got, Mueller and Haile Selassie backing them up? Or do we want to use some buyout options on Mueller, on Suke? Remember, there are 2 buyouts now, new rules from MLS roster here. So what do you want to see? What do you think is going to happen next? Is Neymar going to end up in Chicago? If not this winter, over the summer. And as always, Fire fans, let's go Fire.